The rain had been falling for hours, a steady rhythm against the cracked window panes of Sarah Miller's small bedroom. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, her phone still glowing faintly on the nightstand beside her. The screen displayed a missed call. The name that appeared on it had made her stomach churn the moment she saw it. It read, Emma Collins. The name was impossible. Emma had been her best friend throughout childhood, the girl who knew all her secrets, the one she had laughed with on countless summer evenings. But Emma was gone. She had died when they were teenagers. Sarah had been at the funeral. She had seen the coffin lowered into the ground. And yet, the missed call glared at her as though it had always belonged there. Sarah pressed the phone against her chest, her breath shaky. Maybe it was a glitch, a cruel joke. But when she unlocked the screen, her call log confirmed it. One missed call. Time stamped at 2:17 a.m. Her phone had rung in the dead of night, and she had slept right through it. She tried to tell herself it was a wrong number, but her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Nobody else knew Emma's number. It had been disconnected years ago. The rain kept falling. Somewhere in the dark, she thought she heard the faintest sound of laughter. Light, girlish laughter, the kind she had once known better than her own voice. Sarah woke the next morning with swollen eyes and a dry throat, her phone still clutched in her hand. For a brief, foolish moment, she hoped the call log would look different in daylight, that perhaps she had dreamed the whole thing. But no, the name was still there. Emma Collins. Her finger hovered over the number. She wanted to delete it, erase it like a bad memory. But something inside her, something small and sickly curious, kept her from doing it. Instead, she locked the screen and shoved the phone deep under her pillow. Out of sight, out of mind. She tried to distract herself with normalcy. Coffee, emails, a stack of reports she had promised her boss she'd finish over the weekend. But every time the rain hit the glass, every time she caught her own reflection in the dark monitor screen, she felt Emma's presence. That same tickle of laughter, too faint to prove it was real, but too familiar to ignore. By afternoon, Sarah convinced herself she was spiraling. Grief does strange things, she thought. Even years later, maybe her subconscious had clawed Emma's name back into existence. Maybe she had wanted to hear from her after all this time. She poured herself another coffee. That's when the vibration came. Her phone, buzzing violently on the counter. She froze, her mug trembling in her hand. Slowly, she reached out, flipped it over, and felt her blood turn to ice. Incoming call. Emma Collins. Her thumb shook against the screen, not daring to answer, not daring to decline. She let it ring, the sound slicing through the air until it stopped. Silence swallowed the room. And then, one new voicemail. Her knees almost buckled as she tapped the screen. She pressed the phone to her ear. At first, only static hissed through the line. Then a faint whisper, broken and breathless. Sarah. She yanked the phone away, her heart slamming against her ribs. The voice had been wrong. Too faint, too warped, but unmistakably Emma's. Sarah dropped the phone onto the counter and backed away. She wanted to scream, to cry, to smash the device against the floor. But curiosity coiled around her throat like a rope, holding her still. It had been Emma. She was sure of it. Sarah sat frozen on her kitchen floor, her back pressed against the cabinet, staring at the phone as though it had grown teeth. The voicemail replayed in her head, that distorted whisper of her name echoing in Emma's voice. She told herself not to listen again, but her hand moved on its own, trembling as she tapped play one more time. The static returned, broken by shallow breathing. Then, clearer this time, the whisper, "Sarah, you forgot me." Her heart dropped. The message ended abruptly, as though the caller had been cut off, or had hung up. Sarah clutched the phone to her chest. She whispered into the empty room, "You're dead, Emma. You're dead." Saying it out loud was supposed to ground her, remind her of reality. But the word dead hung in the air like smoke that refused to clear. She didn't leave the apartment that day. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the building felt like footsteps creeping closer. The rain had stopped by evening, but the silence that followed was worse, thicker, heavier. By midnight, Sarah lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling. She had turned her phone off, but the unease gnawed at her. She thought of Emma's last day, the argument they'd had, the way Emma had stormed off, tears in her eyes, disappearing down the street. Hours later, the accident. The phone call that shattered Sarah's world. Her eyes burned with guilt. But she couldn't cry. Not anymore. Instead, she drifted in and out of restless sleep until the phone, her phone, which she knew she had powered down, buzzed violently on the nightstand. Her heart slammed. She turned her head slowly. The screen glowed in the darkness. One new voicemail. No call this time. Just the message. Hands shaking, she pressed play. The voice that followed wasn't faint anymore. It was sharp, broken by bursts of static. But still undeniably Emma's. Why did you leave me? Sarah, I waited. It's cold here. Sarah clapped her hand over her mouth, stifling a sob. Then the voice grew lower, darker. Come back to where it ended. The voicemail cut off with a screech, like nails dragging across metal. Sarah hurled the phone across the room. It clattered against the wall and fell silent. She curled into herself, rocking back and forth, whispering, "No, no, no." But the words on the voicemail looped through her mind. Come back to where it ended. There was only one place Emma could mean. The bridge. The bridge had always been an ordinary place. A stretch of cracked concrete suspended above the river, its paint peeling, its guardrails rusted with years of rain and neglect. But after that night, the night Emma died, it had turned into something else entirely. A scar carved into Sarah's memory, a place she had sworn never to return. And yet here she was, her car idling at the edge of the road, headlights slicing through the fog. She sat gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles blanched. She hadn't planned to come. She had promised herself she wouldn't listen. But Emma's words had burrowed into her mind, whispering louder with every hour that passed. Come back to where it ended. The clock on the dashboard read 2:17 a.m., the exact time of the missed call 2 nights ago. Her stomach knotted. She killed the engine. The silence was immediate, oppressive. Sarah stepped out, her boots crunching against wet gravel. The air smelled of damp metal and river water, sharp and suffocating. The bridge loomed ahead. Her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She nearly screamed. With trembling hands, she pulled it out. The screen lit up, the name glaring at her like a curse. Emma Collins. Sarah's throat went dry. She couldn't answer. Not here, not now. The ringing stopped, replaced by the notification of a new voicemail. Her chest tightened as she pressed play. The voice was crystal clear this time, every syllable dripping with venom. You left me here, Sarah. You watched me die. And now, it's your turn. The message ended in silence. Her breath came out in short, jagged bursts. She knew she hadn't watched Emma die. She hadn't even been there. But the words gnawed at her, unraveling everything she thought she knew about that night. The fog thickened, curling around the guardrails. And then, from the corner of her eye, she saw movement. A figure, slight, feminine, standing at the center of the bridge. Sarah's heart stuttered. Her lips formed a name she couldn't force out. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, half shrouded by mist, watching. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Her hands trembled as she raised the phone to her ear. This time, the voice wasn't broken. It wasn't faint. It was Emma, as if she were standing right beside her. Look behind you. Sarah froze. Every muscle in her body locked. Slowly, with tears burning in her eyes, she turned. The bridge behind her was empty. But when she spun back around, the figure at the center had moved closer. Emma's face, or what remained of it, stared back at her. Emma's face was pale, the skin mottled as if it had never fully belonged to the living. Her eyes, once bright with mischief, were bottomless pits now, dark and endless. Her lips twisted into a grin that didn't belong to her, a grin that stretched too wide, too sharp. Sarah's knees nearly buckled beneath her. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body wouldn't obey. She could only stare as Emma's figure flickered in the mist, moving closer without footsteps, gliding as though the fog carried her. Emma, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. This isn't real. You're gone. You're gone. The thing wearing Emma's face tilted its head, the grin widening. And then Sarah's phone vibrated in her hand again. Another voicemail, playing on its own without her touching it. The voice was Emma's. Not twisted, not ghostly. but the same voice Sarah had once laughed with under summer skies. "You promised, Sarah. You promised you'd never leave me. And you did." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "I didn't leave you. I tried. I tried to fix it. The shadow of Emma stopped only a few feet away. Her hair hung wet and limp, as though she had just crawled from the river. The air around her smelled of rust and stagnant water. The voicemail continued, Emma's voice turning venomous. "I called for you that night. You didn't answer. You never answer." Sarah dropped the phone, the sound echoing against the bridge. Her hands shook violently as she stumbled back toward her car. But when she glanced over her shoulder, her car was gone. The road behind her stretched into endless fog. Her world had shrunk to the bridge and the river below. Emma moved closer. "Do you remember what you said the last time we spoke?" Sarah's chest heaved. She remembered all too well. The fight, the words she hadn't meant. "I wish you'd just disappear." Emma's voice bled into the night, overlapping with the memory. "You wanted me gone. And now I am. But you're coming with me." The guardrail groaned. Sarah spun, and the bridge beneath her feet seemed to warp, pulling her toward the edge. She clawed at the ground, her nails scraping concrete, her breath ragged. Hands, cold, wet hands, closed around her wrists. She looked up into Emma's face, that hollow void where her eyes had once been. Sarah screamed, but it was swallowed by the fog. The river below roared louder, as though it were hungry. Emma leaned close, her breath cold against Sarah's ear. Best friends forever. And with one violent pull, Sarah was dragged over the edge. Her scream was cut short by the splash of black water. The bridge fell silent. The fog thickened, curling over the guardrails, hiding the river from sight. On the cracked pavement, Sarah's phone lay glowing. One last voicemail notification blinked across the screen. New message from Sarah Miller.